And we have mentioned a few times over the day here that because we have 404 players, 410 is the cutoff. This is a situation where even though one of these players will win and move on to 7-1, they would likely will not be able to draw the next round because of tiebreakers.
Almost certainly not the case.
Yeah. So we're going to be underway here in just a moment between Norton and Neeley. You see Neeley playing blue-white control. He gets to start things off with a Temple of Silence. It's time to scry. Top card's going to go over to the bottom for Norton. Picks up a draw here. We'll see if he's got a 1-drop to get this party started.
And Brave Knight has got a pretty big edge in any matchup where its life total isn't being taxed because the threat quality is so high.
Norton on 6 cards was still able to start off with a Plains and a Soldier of the Pantheon. A fantastic card against blue-white control. But, again, this is blue-white control, not Esper, so they do have access to cards like a Last Breath, like a Celestial Flare, like a Banishing Light, a new one. So Soldier's not the end-all, be-all like it used to be.
Still can't be touched by Azorius Charm or Detention Sphere, so Soldier does some good work in the matchup.
And then start by attacking here for 2. Neeley's going to go down to 18. See if Norton's got a follow-up player. Carly Voice of Resurgence would be quite good right now.
And there are 4 copies of this. The threats in this deck: 4 Fleece Mainline, 4 Voice of Resurgence, 4 Boros Reckoner, 4 Dry Militant, 4 Rampager, 3 Soldier of the Pantheon, and 3 Loxodon Smiters.
And there's a Temple Guard that's going to come to play on tap. Norton going to go down to 18, so a tie ball game right now. The follow play is going to be a Fleece Main Lion before passing the turn back over to Neeley, who's going to untap. He will take a draw, adds a Hallowed Fountain to his hand.
This is what is so attractive about Brave Naya. Pound for pound, the quality of the creatures in this deck is very high.
Yeah. This is a Watch Wolf right here in Fleece Main Lion with all upside as Neeley goes down to 16. Looks like it might be Detention Sphere or Banishing Light time, and it will be the Sphere that's going to take care of the Lion. So bye-bye 3-3. Pass the turn back over to Norton, who will untap and take a draw here.
And unlike many other attacking decks, Brave Naya can beat a Result Elspeth because Brave the Elements gives it an out. Yeah. It can also get some combo draws involving Boros Charm and Gore Clan Rampager and such, so a lot of dimensions to this deck's attack.
14 is the life total here for Neeley after the attack for 2 with the Soldier. See if Norton's got something to play this turn. Just drop down a Plains. Going to follow up with a Boros Reckoner before passing the turn back over to Neeley. We'll see if Neeley has something like a Supreme Verdict here. Hey, he just rolled one off the top of the deck, and I think he's got the 4th land, too.
I don't think he had it coming into this turn, but he has it now.
Yeah.
And you can see Matthew with some hesitation there by playing the Reckoner, but, you know, if your opponent Detention Sphered your 1 threat last turn, reasonable to assume the Supreme Verdict isn't there, but Jacob with it off the top.
So you see Neeley going to consult his hand here. Does he want to play the Verdict? Looks like he may have a Jace in his hand as well right now, but he is going to take 2 from a 3rd Hallowed Fountain of the game. Down to 12 he goes. And 4 mana, it's the very deadly Supreme Verdict. That will clear up the creatures on the table from Norton's side. Norton will untap those 3 lands and take a draw. Does have Mana Confluence in the grip right now. See if he's got something to redeploy here.
I understand some hesitation with Jacob, maybe thinking he can squeeze out more value, but against an opponent who's mulliganed, you don't need to get that much value out of it.
It's pretty hard to pass up. Here's a Loxodon Smiter post-combat. The big 4/4 elephant, showing up to the party. Neeley going to play a Plains, going to tap 4 mana, and now this is a Jace, Architect of Thought. That's almost forced at this point to tick up.
Yeah, I think that tapping out here and going to 8 potentially is really risky.
Norton going to untap and take a draw here. See what he can find. He has a Selesnya Charm in his hand at this point.
And a Boros Charm as well, I believe.
Mm-hmm. This is an attack. He says, I'm going right after you. I don't care about Jace. The trigger, 3 damage is going to come across. Neeley's going to go down to 9. Norton trying to just finish this game off and ignore Jace.
You can't kill Jace in 1 shot, so it's really hard to justify sending any resources at it.
That's for sure. Neeley going to play a Plains. 6 mana, this looks like Elspeth to me. That's exactly what it is. See if Elspeth's going to tick up or down in this situation. And it looks like the elevator's going up 3 Soldier tokens. Now, a lot of the time against aggro decks, that would be lights out, but that's not always the case here because this deck is able to give its creatures trample.
Yes, between Brave the Elements and Selesnya Charm, there are outs to Elspeth a lot of other attacking decks do not have.
Don't forget about Gore Clan Rampager as well.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. So 3 Soldier tokens will be coming, and don't forget Neeley has not used that Jace yet. He would not want to forget to do that. And he will not forget. Gonna tick up to 6. Norton, see what he has in his hand. Maybe he has an end of turn effect at this point. Wouldn't be surprised to see Neeley die.
Norton's only got one red source of mana here, the Mana Confluence, so if he wants to chain together multiple red spells, he does want to deploy one of them now. We shall see.
Yeah, I'm going to see if he's going to fire off one at the end step here. It looks like he has a Boros Charm in his hand that he may want to fire off and hopefully try to draw another one. That could be the situation that he's in right now. Nothing doing. So he's just going to untap. He's going to take a draw here.
The other thing now is the jig is up with you, with Matthew sitting and thinking. Jig has got to know something's up.
Temple Garden going to come into play untapped right away. Interesting. Wonder what this is here.
Does he have Brave and Selesnya Charm? Yeah, he's got it all.
Oh my goodness. All right, so +2, +2. Gonna make that a 6/6. You see he's gonna sequence the spells beautifully here. He's gotta do all the targeting first before giving his creature protection from white. So now, double strike. So let's effectively call that a 12/12. And now the last card is Brave the Elements. And that's gonna give this protection from white, and that's the 1-2-3 punch. And that's going to get the job done. Matthew Norton going to win game number 1 here over Jacob Neeley. Brave Naya with an impressive win over Blue-White Control in game 1.
And try to find beatdown decks that get out of that board. You know, Mulligan on the draw, get hit with the Tension Sphere on 3, Supreme Verdict on 4, a Jace plus on 5, and then an Elspeth on 6. That's a pretty crazy draw for a beatdown deck to get out of.
Few and far between. Not a lot of beatdown decks can do that.
No.
Take a look at the sideboards here. We're going to go to Jacob Neeley first, which I have in front of me. A Faded Retribution, a Blind Obedience, a Pithing Needle, 2 copies of Last Breath, 2 Celestial Flare, an Aetherling, a Negate, a Dispel, 2 copies of Reprisal, a Deicide, and a Nyx Fleece Ram. I love the Ram here. I actually like Reprisal, too. Take a look at targets for that. Smiter would have been a good one, Goreclan Rampager, but also the fact that just the creatures are going to get pumped a lot here, and Reprisal can actually blow out a card like Selesnya Charm or Goreclan Rampager's Blood Rush. Seems pretty nice here.
There's a risk of it being dead in your hand, but there's probably enough targets and situations where it's worth a slot.
You wouldn't think Dispel would be a good against this deck, but Boros Charm, Selesnya Charm, and Brave the Elements say otherwise. I kind of like that here, too.
Well, it depends how much of that Matthew's going to be getting away from post-board. He may want to become more threat-dense and remove, say, for example, remove Selesnya Charm altogether and maybe even remove a couple copies of Brave the Elements, though most likely not all 4. So it's a little rough to bring in that spell when a lot of the instants may be coming out anyway.
Do you like Last Breath here? You got the Soldier,
Yep.
Voice of Resurgence, and Dried Militant.
Voice of Resurgence is a good enough justification in my mind. There's other targets as well.
Celestial Flare?
Yes.
Yeah, like that as well.
Removal spells that cannot be fizzled by Brave the Elements are at a premium here.
Okay.
So I like all those kind of cards. Faded Retribution I like quite a bit in this matchup as well for similar reasons.
A little expensive for my taste, but I can certainly see wanting to bring one in. 7 mana is a lot for a Wrath effect.
It is, but I think the counter spells are pretty bad in this matchup. Brave Naya, is pretty low to the ground. It has locks on Smiter, a lot of instants. It's hard to use counter spells profitably. I would want to become more of a board control deck against this deck.
On the other side of things, what do we see?
3 Keening Apparition, 3 Byzantine Mortars, 3 Unflinching Courage, 3 Dawnry Rads, 2 Giant Growths of Glare of Heresy. I think the Keening Apparitions and the Dawnrys are going to come in, and maybe the Glare as well.
It looks like Norton may have forgotten the Soldier trigger for 1 life, but it's okay.
Yeah, against Blue-White Control, that's what
It's
ends up.
okay.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect. Also, who remembers the Soldier trigger in real life? Like, no one.
Whenever I watch people play in the feature match area, they're remembering their Soldier triggers. I think to myself, this person's been playing a lot.
I forget it sometimes when I'm playing Magic online. Thankfully, it's there to remind me, but I would forget the Soldier trigger a lot. It seems like it's just mostly irrelevant, but it certainly can come up, and you don't want to forget your free life.
It matters in some matchups quite a bit. I think Mono Blue Devotion is the one where it most regularly comes up because they're kind of damage racing you, and they play a lot of gold spells, or hybrid spells at least, but Blue-White Control, pretty unlikely that it comes down to that 1 point of damage. Not saying it's impossible.
It's just improbable.
Unlikely.
So again, Brave Naya up a game here. Brad Nelson, a huge, huge fan of this deck. I know that he wanted to be here this weekend to play the deck, as he's been, really advocating it for some time now. He kind of wanted to put his money where his mouth was, but he's got this Pro Tour to test for next weekend with Todd Anderson and friends, so he's getting ready for that instead in Roanoke, doing his due diligence, making sure that he can top 8 another Pro Tour over the course of his career. Unfortunately for him, it's not standard.
Sure.
Because he would be a lock there.
Yeah, he is quite the standard player.
It is simply a block Pro Tour next weekend in Atlanta. Pro Tour journey into Knicks. I'm sure all our eyes will be on that direction. It should be fun.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what comes out of it. Block is fun because it gives you some ideas for decks that maybe you hadn't considered, or maybe they're a little short on power level to compete in standard, but when Sphinx's Revelation and friends rotate out, you can imagine it being a standard deck. So it's fun just to see a different constructed format that gives you some ideas of maybe for standard decks of your own, or where standard is going to be going in a couple months.
Neeley going to be on the play here for game number 2. The funny thing is we've seen a lot of Knicks Fleece Rams in the sideboard, but it's oddly enough that, a lot of the time when we see that card in people's sideboard, they're not in the matchup where it's good. I actually haven't seen Knicks Fleece Rams show up yet on coverage. I'd be interested to see exactly how good that card is against the aggressive decks. Presumably it's very good.
It depends exactly what they're up to, but if you're playing a low to the ground mono black or mono red list, the Rams insane. It's a little bit different with a deck like Brave Naya where they have more pump spells and their creatures just are more impactful.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a powerful card for aggressive matchups, I think, pretty much across the board.
Yeah, really good tool for control decks. We didn't even talk about that. We were kind of going over the cards that blue-white control decks have gotten access to. You always think of a card like Deicide and Banishing Light. You forget that it also has access to the Ram, and people used to play the old Yolk-Nox. So
yeah, Deicide's definitely an upgrade against Revoke existence in most matchups, but what the problem is that a lot of these control decks, especially the Esper variety, struggle against aggressive decks. And so getting a powerful sideboard card in those matchups is really valuable.
Well, game 2 going to be underway shortly here. Star City Games Open Series here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Your tweets, we want them at SCG Live, hashtag SCGKNOX. All weekend long, we've had some fun answering questions. Even took time to answer questions about donuts earlier.
All sorts of things.
Because we will do that. Some people wondering about the NBA playoffs. Look, we're fans. You guys all know that. Come on now. It was great to watch the Clippers lose yesterday. Wouldn't you agree?
I'm glad I was not there. I'm glad I was able to sell my ticket before the game.
Hey, you got to watch it with me. I just got to make fun of you the whole time.
Kind of.
It was an enjoyable experience for all. See if Jacob's able to keep his opening 7. Looks like he is. Norton able to keep 7 this time, too. If Norton could win on 6 last game, you got to imagine he's going to win 7 this one. Heck, even 8. He gets to draw a card.
And Jacob's draw was nothing to sneeze at.
Temple Garden here tapped for Norton. So no 1-drop, no Milton or Soldier here for the Brave Naya player. Neeley with a Temple of Silence into a Temple of Enlightenment. Time to take a look. A Revelation going to go to the bottom. And this is a copy of Elixir of Immortality before passing the turn back. A little surprised to see it in the deck after sideboard.
Depends if he wants 3 mana, gain 5 life. Maybe he does. But the game is not going to go long enough for certainly reshuffling the graveyard and all those kind of shenanigans to be a factor.
Sacred Foundry going to show up here for Norton, untapped. 18 is the life total. And we'll see what 2-drop he has to play. Fleece Mane Lion, Selesnya Charm, Boros Charm, Voice of Resurgence, all options. So simply going to pass the turn back over to Neeley, who's going to play Azorius Guildgate. And there is the Selesnya Charm. We knew something was coming.
Nice. Make it 2-2.
Absolutely. All those modes. So a 2-2 Knight with Vigilance will be joining the party in just a second. Likely to be Reed Duke showing up to the party. And there he is. And in for 2 we go. So Neeley's going to go down to 18. Remember, Brave Naya, while it is an aggressive deck, it isn't the fastest deck in the world.
No, only 7 1-drops. The 2-drops, there's Selesnya Charm if you want to count that. Voice of Resurgence, Fleece Mane Lion. It's not the most linear, the most homogenous beatdown deck.
Temple Garden going to come and play untapped here for Norton. Down to 16 he goes. This is a Domri. Will this resolve? Looks like the answer is yes. That elevator is going up to 4. And a Loxodon Smiter is going to go to the grip.
Can't even counter that.
No. Elixir going to get shuffled in here. So this is basically, as you mentioned, 3 mana, gain 5.
And the way this game is shaping up, that's not really that powerful effect. If Matthew wins, it's probably going to be by overpowering and not by just barely squeezing through 20 points of damage.
So Domri up at 4, and now you've got Norton coming from 2 different angles. So a small little army there with the Selesnya Charm Knight token, and of course Smiter is probably going to be on the way next turn. But Domri going to force Neeley's hand at some point to take care of that.
Yeah, it's really interesting to watch this Brave Naya deck in action against blue-white control, because under normal circumstances, all the blue-white control has to do against most aggressive decks is buy time and play Elspeth, and that's game over. We know that does not work against Brave Naya, and so Jacob has to be much more concerned about what am I doing in the turns to bridge the gap in between my opening sequence and getting to Elspeth, because you can just die to Brave the Elements plus pump spells.
Detention Sphere taking down the Planeswalker as Reed Duke comes into the red zone yet again. Neeley going to go down to 21. We'll see what Norton wants to do on his fourth turn of the game. Going to just play a replacement Domri. Tick that up to 4. Take a look. Doesn't like what he sees, just passing the turn back. Really deciding that, hey, it's really important for me to get this Planeswalker rolling here. There's a Plains for Neeley. Just going to pass the turn back. One turn away, or one land away from an Elspeth.
But Jacob can't be too upset with the pacing of this game.
I would have to love it if I was him.
His life total is so high.
Temple of Abandon here for Norton, be able to set up the top of his deck to make sure that Domri does hit, or at least assist it in doing so. Top card's going to go down to the bottom. Domri is going to tick up to 5. Take a look here. That's a hit. It's a Soldier of the Pantheon.
These are all pretty low impact in the face of an Elspeth, though.
Attack for 2. Going to put Neeley down to 19. 19 on turn 5, huh? Got some real work to get done here. There's a Soldier. Looks like Norton wants to be able to leave up Boros Charm, too, at this point.
Very suspicious. Jacob has to know what this represents.
Yeah, I mean, you have to imagine that's the case, because he could have played a Smiter if he wanted to. So you have to imagine, okay, well, this is something that you could have here, and Boros Charm is basically screaming at him in the face.
If Jacob is without a 6th land, though, he is in some trouble, and it appears that is the case.
Selesnya Charm, number 2. Gonna come on down here. Another Night Token here for Norton. So he's doing a pretty nice job of just pacing his threats and, you know, putting out a board while upping his Planeswalker and having Boros Charm at the ready. So you gotta like the way that this is kind of shaping up here. I'm sure Norton would like to be a little bit faster, but I like the pace of this, actually, for the aggro player side.
And this is really dangerous stuff if you're Jacob, right? Because you saw what happened last game where your light total got low enough that Elspeth didn't even matter. And you can sort of feel the game getting to this place again where Jacob's only line of play is to tap out for Elspeth and just cross his fingers and hope that that's good enough. And this hit for 6 right now really increases the odds that Elspeth is not going to be good enough.
Neeley goes down to 13. We saw Voice Resurgence revealed from Domri. And it looks like that's probably what Norton's going to play this turn. And there is the 2-2. So that'll force Neeley's hand in a different way as well. Neeley just has to take a draw here, and I do not think he found his 6th land. And there's no guarantee that when he does find the 6th land that it comes into play untapped.
And he has to respect the possibility of Boros Charm through all this as well because of the sequencing a couple turns ago, electing not to cast Loxodon Spider and going down this road instead.
There's the Supreme Verdict, and this is the Boros Charm that you did mention. And that's going to make everything indestructible. So that's going to counter Supreme Verdict all by itself. None of the creatures here from Norton are going to die. And all Neeley can do is pass the turn back right now. And you see Norton does point to his soldier, says, I get a life, you know.
Yeah!
Attaboy.
Way to go, Matt.
See a little bit of a smile on his face. It's a tough one to remember. As Norton does draw his card for the turn. Kind of in the driver's seat right now. Domri Ultimate being threatened.
I think he has Giant Growth in hand, too. He might be comboing out this turn.
And Brad loved that card in his deck. Here's an attack for 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, no. Oh, no. Is this the 1-2 punch? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Going to put you down to 2? And a Boros Charm as well? That is it. Matthew Norton defeats Jacob Neeley 2-0. Brave Naya 7-1, my friend.
Yeah, Jacob had a 1-turn window there to have his 6th land on time to cast Elspeth. And after that, it wasn't even going to be good anyway, I suspect. And Matthew's tricks were just able to win the day.
It's a weird aggro deck. It's a little bit feisty. You know, it's not low to the ground like maybe mono black aggro or mono red. You know, its creatures are a little bit bigger. It doesn't kill you as fast, but it's got some more durability due to the charms, the flexibility of those cards, and the power of Brave the Elements. You can argue, you know, one of the most underplayed cards given its power level in Standard.
Yeah, it is super, super powerful. And this deck uses it to very good effect. In White Weenie decks, you're basically using Brave just to win the game, because saving any individual threat is not really worth the card. You play a bunch of 2/1s for 1 and so forth. The Brave Nihilist, you're looking at Lockstone Smiter, Fleece Mane Lion. These are really powerful threats to keep alive. These are powerful threats to fizzle a removal spell against. So Brave can still play the role of winning the game when the game gets scummed down a little bit.